I've never really been wild camping before. Not more than a stone's throw away from the car anyway, but I always kind of fancied it. Being way out in the elements, all alone. This was my first attempt at living that fantasy. It all started earlier that day, down in the wee town of Tillicoultry. I was heading up in the direction of a wee lump known as Elliston Hill, not really intending to climb it, but just to find a nice wee spot to camp somewhere along the way. It actually felt a lot more relaxing than a normal hill walk, knowing that I had nowhere to be. Just taking my time and enjoying the outdoors. A handy wee staircase helped us get some height quickly, at the expense of our knee joints, but who needs those? I tried to pack as lightly as I could, but it never quite works for me. I always end up with a backpack heavier than a shopping trolley full of iron brew. I don't quite know what goes wrong. It's not long until you emerge from the forest, and over the tops of the trees you can see the old abandoned quarry just across the glen. The views back down to Tillicoultry start to open up pretty quickly. It looks like a little model town from this angle. Thankfully, there are plenty of benches on the way up for jelly-legged walkers like myself. It's a great place to stop and have a wee nosy. The Forth Valley was looking pretty nice below in the evening glow. I could see everyone down there going about their business. I even spotted a new life coming into the world. A baby hay bale being born. Magical. This fellow, he'd clearly been straight into the barber's after lockdown to get himself a slick new haircut. Really puts me to shame. The bad news is, the hill gets steeper before it gets easier. But if you're tall enough, you can peer down over the bracken into the glens below. It started to take on a bit more of the wild feel that I'd been looking for. It took a fair bit of searching to find the right spot. Not just any spot, but the right spot. It was my first wild camp after all. It had to be good. Flat, sheltered from the wind, and a working shower. Any two of the three would do me. I finally found it and plonked down my bag. As usual, it took me a wee bit of time to find the front door. But with that obstacle overcome, we set about building a structure that the old pharaohs of Egypt would be proud of. With the help of my better half, of course. Our wee home for the night was finally set up, though it was a little bit, to use the technical term, flappy. But the view was just too good to give up. It already started to get a little bit gustier since we set up the tent, but my mind was fixated on food. Before the potted noodling could begin, I had to go get some water from the river. An enormous firebird landed on my arm. I could see the battle scars on his wings. I knew he meant business. We wrestled for what felt like hours. I managed to use my superior strength to wrench myself free of his talons. That's how I like to remember it anyway. I grabbed the water and headed back to the tent to filter it. Finally, it was time for some tucker. I'm not gonna lie, I wolfed that pot noodle down like an animal. I was starving. Now that dinner was over with, all we had left to do was to enjoy the views and wait for bedtime. To me, this was wild. The wildest camp I'd been before was the time my mum dragged myself and my dad along the road through the middle of a campsite. She'd accidentally got the guy line stuck in the back of her car. That was pretty wild. A different type of wild, I suppose. The skies were beginning to grey a little, but it would be fine. The weather forecast said so. Confident I was going to sleep like a baby, I headed off to bed. Around midnight, things started getting really rough. The flappy factor was off the scale. The tent was shuddering under the wind. I was quite happy and warm in my sleeping bag, but after a few hours of lying awake, we decided to just get up early and go. We made the hour-and-a-half walk back to the car in total darkness and pouring rain. I don't know if you could technically say that this was my first wild camp, since I got up and left before the sun came up. But I made it to the next day, so that counts, right? I'll definitely spend a bit longer looking for a more sheltered location before setting up the camp next time. Lesson learned, but what a fun lesson it was. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you all next time.